Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Anganatirmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakanaratnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamascha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Yugyascha Vipa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. Hare Krishna. It's September 3rd, 2022. And today is Sri Radhastami. It's the anniversary of the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. We chant those invocation verses that we just chanted. And well, Srimati Radharani is really appears several times in those verses that we just chanted. So I thought I'll read some of the translations there. So like, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute. Oh my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. So, oftentimes we use analogies following the line of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And hey, happy Radhastami there in Lisnese, Czech Republic. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare. So, yeah, oftentimes we'll use analogies like the material world, material consciousness, material world. It's a reflection. Krishna uses the metaphor in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, just like if we see a tree with its branches down and its roots up, and so where do we see such a tree with branches down and roots up? Well, if we're standing on the bank of a river or a lake, and on the other side there's a tree, well, then the reflection in the water has its branches down and its roots up. Sometimes we'll use analogies like a shadow, material world, actually like Chaya Devi. So Durga, or the material energy, is like the shadow. Okay. So as soon as we say a reflection or a shadow, it means there's substance. It means there's something. That's the reflection of the tree. It means there's a real tree. And as soon as you say there's a shadow, it means there's something substantial that's casting that shadow. There's a substantial person or object. Okay. So the key principle here is everything in the material sphere. This is, to use an analogy, it's like a virtual reality game, right? In a video virtual reality game, there's trees, there's a river, there's a person, there's my enemy, there's my friend, there's, okay, right. But we know, and we can get addicted. We can get addicted to the false characters, the shadow. They're real in the sense of real as a reflection. But then someone with clear consciousness can say, look, you look terrible. You've been on that machine for days, right? Like you look terrible. Like you need to eat. You need to get outside and see real trees. There's real trees and real rivers. There's real sky, right? Like, don't settle for the shadow. So just the fact that we talk about a shadow or a reflection indicates that there is the real thing. So, okay, Prabhupada, in those purports to chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, he talks about like someone who sees the temporary flickering shadow, false nature of material reality. Well, that's valid. And he said, but that's only 180 degrees of the circle. There's 360 degrees in the circle. So yeah, that's the reflection of the tree, and that's flickering and lacking substance, but there's a real tree. There's a real tree. Similarly, Prabhupada gives the example of there could be an animal or a person, right? Let's say in a desert, an animal in the desert, and there's, just 50 yards away, there's an oasis with water, and the animal runs, but it's just a mirage. It's just a mirage. But it's just 50 yards that way. But it's a mirage, and then ultimately the animal, out of exhaustion and frustration, will die because there's no water. Because there's no water. Actually, though, there is water. There's just not water in the desert. There's just not water in the desert, but there is water. Just like when there's a shadow, there is a substantial person or object casting the shadow. So, okay. So we're all seeking enjoyment through relationships in this world. Even though some of you, like, I don't even know, still, I say with full confidence, we're all seeking enjoyment in relationships in this world. Yeah, we're all seeking enjoyment. And we've all experienced frustration in that attempt. Again, I don't even need to do 12 years of therapy with you. I know. Okay, yeah, okay. And there could be 12 million people in this class, and I could make that statement, and I know I'm right, which is important to be right. So, yeah, so, okay. And that's because, just like, again, if there's a reflection of the tree, we can try to grab the fruit of the reflection, and there's no substance there. It's not going to satisfy our tummy. There's no substance there. Right? And it's just like the shadow has no substance. So as long as in material consciousness, in the material realm, because it's a natural propensity want to enjoy and be fulfilled and peaceful and satisfied and vibrant in relationships. And as long as we're attempting to do that in material realm, material consciousness, we will be frustrated, often painfully so, and we'll be left with insecurity and resentments and things like that. Okay. Just describing reality here. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just describing your reality. Okay. Yes. Well, Govinda and Damayanti are saying, no, that's not our experience at all. Yes, their experience is endeavors to be satisfied and joyful in relationships always turn out like a Disney movie. That's their experience still. Okay, for some here it might be very different. Okay. So, yes, thank you. All right. So, yeah. Then that's why, so there are many spiritual approaches to realize the emptiness and futility of endeavoring to be fulfilled and satisfied and peaceful and happy and joyful and secure in trying to satisfy material desires. It's all empty, it's all based on illusion. And so, to use a Vedic term, the idea is, let's detach from all of that. Let's detach from all of that and merge into the Brahman, merge into the oneness of the white light. There's lots of approaches like that. Meaning that in that oneness that so many aspiring spiritualists are aspiring for, in that oneness, there's no material enjoyment. And that's true. As long as we have material, to the extent that we're, to the extent that we're addicted to material enjoyment, we will be entrapped in material miseries. Again, don't shoot the messenger, just describing reality as it is.
What does it mean, don't shoot the messenger?
Oh, it means like, okay, like say in ancient times, maybe still times, like someone would come from one kingdom to the other kingdom to deliver a message to the king. And if the message wasn't something the king liked, they would chop off the head of the messenger. Okay, right. So, yeah, so really, I'm just describing our collective experience. Okay, right. So spiritual realization and material pleasure go ill together. We are celebrating that. I thought you'd understand that. I thought you'd understand. Yeah. So, right. So, and that's true. So there is an aspect of the absolute called the Brahman, and it is completely free of material attachment and the illusion of material enjoyment. That's true. And really what I'm speaking here, I'm just because today before our japa period, a few hours ago, we read an excerpt of a lecture from Srila Prabhupada on Sri Radhastami. And as he did in his lectures on Sri Radhastami, he did talk about Radharani directly in various respects. And he talked a lot about bodily attachment and the inherent miseries of material life. And I find that very significant that he went there on Sri Radhastami. And so Prabhupada emphasized that, okay, so the Brahman is free from the illusion of material enjoyment. Then in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna refers to Krishna as Parabrahma, Paradhamma, Pujam Paramam Bhavan, Param Brahma, which means the supreme Brahman. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Krishna is the source of the Brahma Jyoti. Krishna is the source of the Brahman. He's also the source of the Paramatma. So Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, is the most complete aspect of the absolute and is the source of all material and spiritual energies, including the spiritual energies of the Brahman. So Prabhupada makes the logical point that if the Brahman is free from material enjoyment, how can we think that there's any sense of material enjoyment in Parabrahma? So we're getting to the celebration part. So let's be patient here. Okay. How can there be any material enjoyment in the Parabrahman? Because the Brahman is characterized by freedom from material attachment and material illusion and false attempts at material enjoyment. Okay, so an aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that most complete element of the absolute truth, and Prabhupada often emphasizes, like, sure, there can be a conception, like, oh, now you're talking about like personality of Godhead. That's very primitive. Oh, that's very back. That's old-fashioned. That's old-fashioned. Be progressive and talk about the oneness and how I am you and you are me and things like that. What Prabhupada says, no. So yeah, there is the oneness, and we Vedanti Tattva Vidas Tattva Myajganamayam Brahmeti Paramati Bhagavaniti Shabdite. Learned transcendentalists who realize the absolute truth, realize the absolute in three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, which is an expansion of God in our own hearts, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And through bhakti, we realize so the personality of God, the spirit. Sure, if someone is concocting some material person as the absolute, then that's very primitive. That's very primitive. So let's go beyond that. But on the other side of the Viraj River, on the other side of the Viraj River, and then there's then there's the completely spiritual, pure Supreme Personality of Godhead who enjoys, just like we have a propensity to enjoy. Where does that come from? So the propensity to enjoy, including especially to enjoy in relationship, that comes from our source, right? What exists in the effect must exist in its source. Okay, so Krishna's propensity to enjoy is completely spiritual. It's completely spiritual, and Krishna's prime source relationship for enjoyment, that's Srimati Radharani. That's Srimati Radharani. So on this path of bhakti yoga, this path of Krishna consciousness, we're endeavoring to love Krishna. Now, I know that could sound like, and for me, that's kind of a ambitious term, love Krishna. It can even sound presumptuous, at least for me, love Krishna. Like I'm trying to not waste too many hours on the internet. I'm trying to rise early. Organize my office after 12 years of saying how serious I am. Yeah. Okay. So love Krishna, pretty far away. Yeah. So, okay. But at least in principle, it's like this is about cultivating loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just like in any endeavor, in any endeavor, when we associate with those who are like really excellent and expert in that, then we come to a higher level. Whether our goal is to make money, let's hang out at the Chamber of Commerce where there's like a billionaires or something. If we want to become really good at music, let's hang out with great musicians. We want to become really good at a sport, let's hang out with, we know, we want to learn physics, we're going to associate with physics professors and read books by physics geniuses and stuff like that, right? So so Srimati Radharani, as we just read the translations to the Mangalacharya mantras, Srimati Radharani, she's the best lover of Krishna. She's the best lover of Krishna. Okay. And I gave the whole sort of philosophical preface just so that we don't make the mistake. And that mistake, it can be a serious blunder that gets in the way of our spiritual advancement. If we in any way think that the relations, the pastimes, the activities between Srimati Radharani and Krishna are material, like our material desires. Oh, it's like that. So no, it's completely different. At the same time, just like from a shadow, to go back to that analogy, just like from a shadow, we can get some idea that the substance exists. We get some idea the substance exists, but just from the shadow itself, we don't get a clue of what the substance is really like. Okay, but we get, so just from our attempts to be satisfied and happy and peaceful and joyful and secure in our material attempts at relationships through our material lust, so we can get some idea that in source, there is some relationship enjoyment, but just from the shadow itself, but that from the shadow itself, we don't get an idea of what that substance is like. So the substance, vastu, what that substance is like. So these relations between Srimati Radharani and Krishna have nothing to do with material desire, material lust, material desire to be popular, to satisfy my material senses, material desire to get compliments. Won't you compliment? Material desire for money. It's not that money is material, just like it's not that relationships are material. Right? If we're cultivating the art and science how to utilize money in the service of Krishna, that money is spiritual. It becomes Lakshmi Devi. It's a spiritual energy. Similarly with relationships, we cultivate the art and science of how to put Sri Radha Krishna and their enjoyment in the center of our relationships. Then those relationships become spiritual. Then we're happy and satisfied. That's the key. That's the key. Okay. So it's not about frustration and renouncing. I give up relationship, because the nature of the soul is the one to be blissful in relationship. Okay. So learning the art and science given to us by Srila Prabhupada, representing Sri Radha Krishna perfectly, the art and science of how to put the pleasure of Radha and Krishna, the spiritual pleasure of Sri Radha Krishna in relationships, in the center of our relationships, then we're happy, satisfied. Okay. So Srimati Radharani, she's the best amongst devotees of Krishna. Right? She's the Krishna is Madan Mohan. Krishna is all attractive. And Srimati Radharani is Madan Mohan Mohini. Krishna is all powerful. He's all attractive. He's all detached. He's all renounced. And Srimati Radharani, but Madan Mohan, that's a name for Krishna, means the attractor of Cupid. Right? Cupid shoots the arrows and people fall in love, or then they get into big trouble and stuff like that. Like even if we look at that term in English, like to fall in love. So what happens when we fall? Okay, we get hurt, And again, some of you, well, I've never experienced anything like that, but maybe some of you, oh yeah, no, yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, okay. So Krishna is the attractor of Cupid, and Srimati Radharani is Madan Mohan Mohini, the attractor of Cupid. She's the attractor of Krishna. So she's the most powerful force in all of creation. Srimati Radharani, special thing. Special thing. So this philosophy naturally points to Srimati Radharani talking like she's crazy to a bumblebee. So So there's so many pastimes and descriptions of Srimati Radharani. I think we can read a few and have some discussion, share realizations. There's one, maybe we'll get to it today, I'm not sure. But there's one well-known pastime of Srimati Radharani in the Krishna book. The chapter is entitled something like Krishna sends his message to the gopis. He sends his message through Uddhava. So again, it's the shadow and the substance principle, the reflection of the tree and the real tree. So all of the emotions that we experience in the shadow realm, including madness and anger and joy and affection and vibrancy and the desire to fight, and all of that exists in its pure form in the spiritual world. Pure form means those emotions, those words, those pastimes, they move us, they move the Atma, that's the self, to deeper realization that I'm not matter, and I'm spirit, soul, and I'm in Jivera, Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera, Nityadas, Krishnera, Tatasta Shakti, Beta Prakash, and I'm an eternal servant of Sri Radha Krishna. That's, in a sense, that's how we can tell whether an emotion is spiritual, material. Material means, if I'm honest, it's this experience of indulging in this emotion is alienating me from myself more, me from my enthusiasm to serve God with love and devotion. Spiritual emotion, whether it's apparent happiness, sadness, anger, affection, spiritual emotion deepens my inspiration to realize who I am as Atma, as spirit, soul, as servant of Bhagavan Sri Krishna and his Ladini Shakti, his prime enjoyment, potency, Srimati Radharani. So actually, I took out many books, because I don't know where we'll go with our reading, but we'll do some reading again this morning. Before japa, we read an excerpt from a lecture from Srila Prabhupada related to that he gave on Sri Radhastami in London, England. In our we have a Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita study group. We have a Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita study group, and we've been doing it for like 6 years. It's a wonderful association. And right now, in that study group, we're on the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 18, entitled The Lord's Visit to Vrindavan. And it's kind of a lengthy chapter, but just the first few verses of the chapter relate directly to Srimati Radharani. The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is intimately connected with Srimati Radharani. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. Sri Chaitanya is himself a combined incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna. We can say incarnation in a sense, not an incarnation, because we probably will say Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. He is Radha Krishna. Okay, not like an incarnation, but the English language sometimes doesn't communicate so well. So I'll just read some excerpts from this chapter 18. Okay. All right. Jai Jai Gaurachandra Jai Nichinanda Jai Beta Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Gaurachandra. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, headed by Srivas Thakur. E Mata Mahaprabhu Nachite Ari Grame Asibaya Hoila Achambite. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in ecstasy, but when he arrived at Aritgram, his sense perception was awakened. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the local people, "Where is Radha Kund?" No one could inform him, and the Brahmin accompanying him did not know either. Irta Lupta Jani Prabhu Sarvagya Bhagavan Dui Danya Kshetre Alpa Jale Koila Snan The Lord then understood that the holy place called Radhakund was no longer visible. However, being the omniscient supreme personality of Godhead, he discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund in 2 paddy fields. There was only a little water, but he took his bath there. So Kund means lake or pond. And just to give some context, for example, in the Sri Upadeshamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami, he describes Radhakund as the holiest place in the universe. So this is the pond where Srimati Radharani bathed, Radhakund. Okay. So this is the holiest place in the universe. Okay. So Srimati Radharani is so special. Text 6. Dekhi sabha gramya lokera vismaya hoilamana prema prabhu kare radha kundera stavana. When the people of the village saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking his bath in those 2 ponds in the middle of the paddy fields, they were very astonished. The Lord then offered his prayers to Sri Radhakund. Of all the gopis, Radharani is the dearmost. Similarly, the lake known as Radhakund is very dear to the Lord because it is very dear to Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani is most dear to Lord Krishna, and her lake known as Radhakund is also very dear to him. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most beloved. Ye kunde nicha Krishna radhikara sange jale jala kelikare tire rasa range. In that lake, Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani used to sport daily in the water and have a rasa dance on the bank. Indeed, Lord Krishna gives ecstatic love like that of Srimati Radharani to whoever bathes in that lake even once in his life. Kundera madhuriyena radhara madhurima. Kundera mahimayena radhara mahima. The attraction of Radhakund is as sweet as that of Srimati Radharani. Similarly, the glories of the Kund, the lake, are as glorious as Srimati Radharani. Next is a verse from the Govinda Lilamrita. Because of its wonderful transcendental qualities, Radhakund is as dear to Krishna as Srimati Radharani. It was in that lake that the all-opulent Lord Sri Krishna performed his pastimes with Srimati Radharani, with great pleasure and transcendental bliss. Whoever bathes just once in Radhakund attains Srimati Radharani's loving attraction for Sri Krishna. Who within this world can describe the glories and sweetness of Sri Radhakund? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus offered prayers to Radhakund. Overwhelmed by ecstatic love, he danced on the bank, remembering the pastimes Lord Krishna performed on the bank of Radhakund. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then marked his body with tilak made from the mud of Radhakund. And with the help of Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he collected some of the mud and took it with him. Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, in the lecture from Srila Prabhupada that we read this morning, Prabhupada actually spontaneously referenced his teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he referenced page 264 of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Now, of course, there's different volumes and different editions, but actually, we have copies of that edition from 1968. So I'll read. So this chapter from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya is entitled Pure Love for Krishna. So it reads like this. when this was explained by Lord Chaitanya, so it's about the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. It appears extensively in the 8th chapter of Madhya Leela of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In that conversation, Lord Chaitanya takes the role of the student, and he's asking Ramananda Roy questions. And Ramananda Roy, in terms of social status, is a Sudra, which is like a low-class person. And it illustrates that this Krishna consciousness, this is completely non-sectarian, completely universal. The Lord Chaitanya accepted Ramananda Roy as the most deeply realized person in love of Radha Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya is taking the role of student. There's many pastimes like that throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haridas Thakur was born in a meat-eating family, considered very low. And he was regarded as Lord Chaitanya and Sri Advaita Acharya as the Namacharya, the greatest example of chanting Krishna's names purely. So progress in Bhakti Yoga has nothing to do with any external superfluous material designation, whether it's about gender or country of birth. Of course, and that's extended in Prabhupada's pastimes. He came to the West where there's like no Vedic, Sattvic, Dharmic culture, and he's inspired the whole world. He's inspired the whole world to know about Srimati Radharani. So when this was explained by Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda Roy replied, "Now let us relish the transcendental loving affair between Krishna and Radha, to which there is no comparison in this material world. When there was a performance of rasa dance, Radharani all of a sudden left the area, as if she was angry that there was no special favor shown to her. Krishna was desirous to see Radharani in order to fulfill the purpose of the rasa dance. But in the absence of Radharani, he was very sorry, and he went to search her out.
Hare Krishna, can you just tell me where we are, please?
Sure. Okay, so it's in the version I have, it's chapter 30, Pure Love for Krishna. Chapter 30, Pure Love for Krishna.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and it's the paragraph. Yeah. It's the paragraph, you got the same one. So it's page 263. It's the bottom paragraph of page 263. Bottom paragraph of page 263.
Thank you very much.
So in the absence of Radharani, Krishna was very sorry and he went to search her out. In the Gita Govinda, there is a nice verse in which it is stated that the enemy of Kamsa, Krishna, also wanted to be entangled in love affairs with women, and thus he simply took Radharani away and left the company of the other damsels of Raja. Krishna was very much afflicted by the absence of Radharani, and being thus distressed in mind, he began to search out Radharani along the banks of the Yamuna. Failing to find her, he entered into the bushes of Vrindavan and began to lament for Radharani. Ramananda Roy said that when we discuss the purport of these two special verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, we can relish the highest nectar of Krishna and Radha's loving affairs. Although there were many gopis to dance with Krishna, still Krishna was pleased to dance with Radharani especially. In the rasa dance, Krishna placed himself between each two gopis, but he was present especially with Radharani. Radharani was not pleased with the behavior of Krishna, which is described in Ujjal Nilamani as follows, quote, "The path of loving affairs is just like the movement of a snake. Amongst the young lovers, there are two kinds of mental features, causeless and causal." So when Radharani, out of her anger for not being treated specially, left the area of the rasa, Krishna was very sorry not to see her in the presence of the other gopis. The perfection of the rasa dance was considered to be complete on account of the presence of Radharani. And in her absence, Krishna thought that the rasa dance was now disturbed, and therefore he left the arena to search her out. After wandering in several places, when he could not find Radharani, he was very distressed in mind. Therefore, it is understood that Krishna could not enjoy his pleasure potency in the midst of all the gopis, but in the presence of Radharani, he was satisfied. This transcendental love between Radharani and Krishna was described by Ramananda Roy. Lord Chaitanya admitted that I came to you for understanding about the transcendental loving affairs of Krishna and Radha, and I am very much satisfied that you have described it so nicely. I can understand now from your version that this is the highest loving state between Krishna and Radha. Lord Chaitanya still requested him to try something more. What are the transcendental features of Krishna and the transcendental features of Radharani? And what are the transcendental features of the reciprocation of their feelings? And what is the love between them? If you will kindly describe all this to me, I think I shall be very much obliged, because I know that except for you, nobody can describe such things. I'll pause there. And so I thought, okay, again, there's many places we can go for reading here. So in the Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 23, the 25 qualities of Srimati Radharani are described. So that's chapter 23 of Madhya Leela. It's also in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, but I have it here. This the book I'm not sure where it is in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So I'm going to read from the Madhya Leela, chapter 23, text 86 to 91. Text 86 to 91. Okay. So I'll read the English translation. So this is Lord Chaitanya teaching Sanatan Goswami. It's part of Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatan Goswami.
Will you repeat the chapter number?
Sure. Madhya Leela, chapter 23, text 86 to 91. Okay, so it reads as follows. This is Lord Chaitanya speaking to his disciple, Sri Sanatan Goswami. Similarly, Srimati Radharani has unlimited transcendental qualities, of which 25 qualities are principal. Sri Krishna is controlled by these transcendental qualities of Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani's 25 chief transcendental qualities are: 1, she is very sweet. 2, she is always freshly youthful. 3, her eyes are restless. 4, she smiles brightly. 5, she has beautiful, auspicious lines. 6, she makes Krishna happy with her bodily aroma. 7, she is very expert in singing. 8, her speech is charming. 9, she is very expert in joking and speaking pleasantly. 10, she is very humble and meek. 11, she is always full of mercy. 12, she is cunning. 13, she is expert in executing her duties. 14, she is shy. 15, she is always respectful. 16, she is always calm. 17, she is always grave. 18, she is expert in enjoying life. 19, she is situated at the topmost level of ecstatic love. 20, she is the reservoir of loving affairs in Gokula. 21, she is the most famous of submissive devotees. 22, she is very affectionate to elderly people. 23, she is very submissive to the love of her friends. 24, she is the chief gopi. And 25, she always keeps Krishna under her control. In short, she possesses unlimited transcendental qualities, just as Lord Krishna does. Hare Krishna. All right. So again, there's many places we can go in Prabhupada's books and lectures to hear more about Radharani, to hear directly from Radharani, e.g. in her, for example, in her talk to the bumblebee. But I think I'll pause here, and I'll pause. And if anyone would like to share anything, share any comments, realizations, inspirations, or ask any questions, if anyone would like to ask or share at this time. Hello, Bhakti Yurka, Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments at this time? Okay.
I would comment.
Okay, Prampara.
This morning, mentioned a couple of times, read that lecture from Prabhupada, and he was speaking about how the devotees in Vrindavan, they're calling out Radharani's name more than Krishna. There's a Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe,
Yes.
Jai Radhe.
Yeah.
Like they're greeting each other. So they're very much in the mood of Radharani. And then so I was kind of inside, I was thinking. So that's the mood of like in Vrindavan, you know, that's
Yeah.
the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. And then we have this, you know, Prabhupada, and it's this caution, you know, to be wary of like first of all, even like chanting Radha's name without Krishna. So it's like, are we trying to separate Radha from Krishna and enjoy or something like that? And just like overly emphasizing Radharani's pastimes and with Krishna, it's like it's gonna be sahaja or risky. And you brought in your lecture, you're going to carefully set up all the philosophy of like not bringing our material conceptions into your relationship with Radharani. So there's that concern. So in my mind, I was thinking like what Prabhupada was talking about those in Vrindavan. I'm like, well, what's wrong with it? Why can't we just Jai Radhe, get into Radhe, you know, just kind of like have an internal thing about that. Like, why can't we do more of that? Just Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And then kind of as I was listening to continue reading the lecture, like Prabhupada, you know, hearing from Prabhupada, then I was realizing in that moment, realizing more well, that's really what Lord Chaitanya is for us. Lord Chaitanya is a way to freely be in the mood of Radharani, or to glorify Radharani, to kind of it's like a great way to be like those residents of Vrindavan. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe.
Yes.
To be in that mood, that's you know, whatever, say not sahaja or whatever. To it's like fully authorized for anyone to be chanting the glories and spreading the glories of Lord Chaitanya. And then that's where you went. You were reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, specifically, you know, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and his sharing about Radharani.
Yes.
Radharani's pastime. So it brought it all kind of together for me. Like,
So the dots connected.
yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate, what you're noting, what you're bringing attention to. Thanks for that. And, yes. So, yeah, there's a lot, like, yesterday morning before japa at Mother Malini's house, we have an excerpt from Srila Prabhupada about chanting from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Prabhupada says, the Panchatattva Mahamantra is more important than the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because the Panchatattva Mahamantra doesn't accept offenses. So let's say if we were chanting 16 rounds, a minimum of 16 rounds per day of Jai Radhe, or minimum of 16 rounds per day of Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, well, that's wonderful. It's transcendental sound vibration. It's wonderful. So it's completely wonderful, transcendental. If we're doing Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe. So it's all transcendental. Now at the same time, it really gets to the current link principle. It gets to a few principles. One thing is, okay, so we're here to please Srimati Radharani, and she's very pleased when we're chanting Krishna's name. Okay. And so exactly how to balance everything. Panchatattva, well, who's Lord Nityananda? Like that, let's sing Lord Nityananda's name all day. That would be wonderful. But how to balance everything in a practical, grounded way, meeting ourselves where we're at, without becoming complacent. So, and to gradually, it doesn't have to be gradual, but for most of us, it's a gradual process. Most of us are not in one moment surrendering fully, and to advance and to be protected from various possible pitfalls and detours and distractions and deviations to best protect ourselves. That's where Sri Radha Krishna's empowered devotee, Lord Srila Prabhupada, he's the empowered acharya for us. Like, okay, here's what's going to work best for you to understand who you are as spirit, soul, how you're entangled in material nature, and to come towards self-realization and turn towards Sri Radha Krishna. Here's kind of like the integration and constellation and combination of practices that's going to be most powerful and effective for you. And on our own, yeah, we probably wouldn't figure it out. And that's where we have our current link to go to. Here's the Vedas, and here's Chaitanya Charitamrita, here's the Upanishads. So what's most applicable for us? And then we had 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, starting with, and before chanting the Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Panchatattva mantra, and celebrating Sri Radhastami today. So thanks. Yeah, and that's it, because to protect us from different deviations. Okay, again, Srimati Radharani's name, can't chant it too much. It's like that. At the same time, like there's the Sahajiya deviation is like, I think that my material, it desires our spiritual. So you might say, Mayavad and Sahajiya, they're the same thing, they're just mirror images. The Mayavad deviation is trying to bring Radha Krishna down to the level of matter. Radha Krishna, it's sattvic, but it's still matter. That ultimately in spirituality, there's no variation. There's no real tree with varieties of plants and twigs and branches, right? Because we need to detach from matter, and then there's just the monotonous oneness. They don't use the word monotonous, right? But there's no variety in spiritual life. So when they see variety like Radha Krishna and the flute and the Yamuna River and Radharani's emotions, no, that's all Maya. And maybe a mode of goodness Maya, but it's all Maya. So trying to bring spirit down to the level of matter. And the Sahajiya deviation essentially is thinking that my material body is enjoyable by Radha and Krishna. Okay, trying to bring matter up to spirit. Mayavadi is trying to bring spirit down to matter. Mother Malini, they're at Bhakti Yoga Retreat.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to go in the same direction you went because I remember when I was in the Sangha where neophyte devotees were singing Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And I felt so uncomfortable because I really felt that experience of making Srimati Radharani's name very cheap.
Yeah.
Like that Sahaja propensity, like we know it's the highest, so we are going to sing that because we are so advanced and so much pretension.
Yeah.
And then I remembered our Sukadev Goswami, who is a pure devotee, who is very, very advanced. A pure devotee is giving us the Srimad Bhagavatam. He couldn't even utter the name of Srimati Radharani.
Yeah.
So like Prabhupada is so much protecting you, like you're saying, he's protecting us from pretension and also meeting us where we are at. He said, okay, don't go there, because if you go there, it's going to be pretension and then really distasteful. At least being around that, I just wanted to be sick. I was sick in my stomach, really, and I wanted to leave and I wanted to run away because it felt so cheap.
Cheap.
You know, and so chanting Lord Chaitanya's name to protect ourselves, and then chanting the Hare Krishna mantra because that's what the pure devotee representative of Srimati Radharani want us to do.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for that sharing, Melanie. Thanks. Yeah, and that's a poignant point. You know, Sri Shukadeva Goswami, he didn't mention the name of Srimati Radharani in the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada does mention the name of Srimati Radharani, and again, like how to balance all the examples and the precepts. Well, that's what the current Linkacharya. That's what the meaning. Otherwise, well, this Veda says that. This Veda says that. I went to this temple over there, and that's why we like to hear from Prabhupada. And I think it's appropriate here to use an example we often use because we can think of Sri Radha Krishna and Vrindavan, you know, the mood of Vrindavan. Malini, you shared, and yeah, I've had experience of like being in a kirtan where the leader basically was Radhe Sham, Jai Radhe Sham. It was just Radhe Sham, that's beautiful. You know, it was like for like 45-minute kirtan, Radhe Sham, and it's like I didn't want to do it again. Like I had that experience, so I didn't want to do that again. Like for it, it's not like I could understand it's not Prabhupada's mood, but just like in my heart, the soul, just like there's something here that for my process, it's off. It's off. And again, like here at our kirtans this morning here at my home temple, we did some special singing of Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai. It's a special day like that. But again, Prabhupada gives us, we're very fortunate that Prabhupada gives us the container, how to balance things so that we meet ourselves where we're at and gradually advance each day. And yeah, you know, so we often use that example of like, look, it's because we hear like Gopi Bhav, the mood of the gopis, the mood of the gopis. I read on Facebook not too long ago, and someone was saying like, well, to get Gopi Bhav, you're not going to get it if you go on book distribution. You need to read special pastimes that Prabhupada didn't give. I practically need to apologize to say that, but I shouldn't even say that, like, you know, in sitting on the Vyasa-san here, but just like there's lots of deviations out there. Like, yeah, if we're like sincerely reading and distributing Prabhupada's books, Srimati Radharani is so pleased. And yeah, we are entering into Gopi Bhav. So like we say, like Srila Prabhupada at the age of 70, penniless. Well, he had the rupee equivalent of $7. Srila Prabhupada at the age of 70, getting on the Jaladuta, a cargo ship. That's Gopi Bhav. Right? That's the mood of the gopis, the chief gopi, Srimati Radharani. Meaning, what's the mood of the gopi? Again, it's not about our material enjoyment conceptions right? And we bring that there, and then our spiritual life is in jeopardy. We bring our material conceptions to the pastimes and mood of the gopis. So the mood of the gopis is like, yeah, we're having this rasa dance. Rasa dance means flavor, it means relationship, special taste. We're having this rasa dance with Krishna. And we want to bring everyone in New York City to the rasa dance. We want to bring everyone in Europe. We want to bring everyone in Latin America to the rasa dance. And that's why Srila Prabhupada left the land of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. He was in Vrindavan. He left there to go to where no one heard of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and to bring everyone to the rasa dance. That's the mood of the gopis. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Molly. Thanks for sharing. Any other comments or questions at this time? Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Anandini, yeah. Yes.
Find the right button.
Sure.
Okay, so we're celebrating Radhastami tomorrow.
Okay.
And so I get to celebrate twice
Yeah.
and get some inspiration for our morning program tomorrow. So I was also listening to a class by Srila Prabhupada that he held on Radhastami, and he didn't speak about Radharani at all, like directly, until the end when one devotee said, oh, today is Radhastami and there's a special program. And then Srila Prabhupada said something about her that I found so sweet and for me practical, because trying to understand who is Radharani, I find very difficult. I don't know, I came to the conclusion maybe everything that's done with love, then Krishna is pleased, and that love, that is Radharani, but it's all kind of trying to, And so what Srila Prabhupada said, he said, today is Radhastami, and we celebrate the appearance of Radharani, and we can approach Krishna through Radharani. And so today we can offer a flower to Srimati Radharani. So instead of offering it directly to Krishna, we can offer it to Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani, she's going to pass the flower on to Krishna because she wants everyone to love Krishna. And I found that so sweet and so practical. Like I can go to the deities and I can offer a flower to Srimati Radharani, and she will pass it on to Krishna. And also I was starting to meditate on, well, my conception of a relationship is that, like, I wouldn't, like, if there's a couple and I want to please this man, I wouldn't give something to the wife that she passes it on to him, because like she could get really jealous. She might not want to pass it on because she wants her man for herself. But that's not Srimati Radharani. She's like no envy. Like that's what pleases her. If we love Krishna. So I just wanted to share this. I find it very sweet. But Prabhupada shared.
Thanks for sharing that. It's beautiful sharing in my perspective. There's two lectures that I know about from Srila Prabhupada on Sri Radhastami. One's in Montreal, one's in London, both in the early years, late 60s, maybe 1970. And in both the lectures, he focuses on like attachment to matter and how to become unattached. And, like he doesn't go, into the pastimes of Radha Krishna. And then in both lectures, he does speak a bit about Srimati Radharani, but he's protecting his disciples and others from going into a sahaja thing. And you're sharing your example you give. I think it's very illustrative of the shadow and the substance. From the shadow, we have relationships in this world. And so we can understand, there's some substantial relationships. Just from the shadow, we can understand there is a substance. Still, from the shadow itself, we don't really have any idea of what's the flavor and nature of the substance. So, yeah, just as you said, Srimati Radharani, she's more pleased when other gopis are enjoying with Krishna than when she's enjoying herself. There's no material envy, jealousy, or anything like that. Malini.
I think it's in the same class that same part of the class that Anand is referring to, that Srila Prabhupada said, in order to please Krishna, we need to please Radharani. And that there will be, like if Radharani is pleased and Krishna is pleased, and basically we need to please Srimati Radharani, and the way to do it is through Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, and the way to please Lord Chaitanya is through Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Malini. Yeah, since I have the transcribed lectures book here. Yeah, and so this is the lecture in Montreal. This is a lecture in Montreal, August 30, 1968. Maybe we can close our Sangha here. Right. So at one point, Prabhupada says, similarly, when we are engaged by regulative principles in the worship of Radha Krishna, that is called Vidhi Marg. And actually, when you are on the love platform, then that is called Raga Marg. So without Vidhi Marg, if anyone wants to learn the Raga Marg immediately, that is foolishness. It means jumping prematurely, pretentiously to, oh Radha, oh Krishna, that sort of thing. That's foolishness. That's foolishness. Nobody can pass the MA examination without going through the regulative principles of primary schools and colleges. So therefore, I do not indulge in the discussions of Radha and Krishna so easily. Rather, go on with the regulative principle at the present moment. Gradually, as you become purified, as you become on the transcendental platform, you'll understand what is Radha Krishna. Don't try to understand Radha Krishna very quickly. It's a very big subject. If we want to understand Radha Krishna very quickly, then there will be so many Prakrita Sahajias. In India, there are Prakrita Sahaja, just like Radha Krishna dancing. Radha Krishna has become a plaything. The painting Radha Krishna, Krishna is kissing Radha, Radha is kissing. These are all nonsense. Radha Krishna philosophy has to be understood by the liberated person, not by the conditioned soul. So we shall await for the fortunate moment when we are liberated. Then we shall understand Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti, because Krishna and Radha, they are not on the material field. Try to understand. This is Jiva Goswami's analysis that Krishna is the Supreme Brahman. The Supreme Brahman cannot accept anything material. So Radha is not in the material field. Now, there's a very nice song I shall sing if you can play on the harmonium. Yes, this is a Rupa Goswami song, and then Prabhupada sings. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Damodara Rati Vardhana Deshe Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipinese Vishabhanudari Navashashi Leke Lalita Saki Gunaramita Vishake Karunam Kuru Mai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dahite Gokula Tarani Mandala Mahite. This song was sung by Rupa Goswami. He is the real person, actual person to understand Radha and Krishna. So he says, all glories to Radharani, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate. She's so dear to Krishna. Krishna, everyone is trying to love Krishna, but Krishna is trying to love somebody. Now, how great she is. Just try to understand everyone, the whole world, the whole universe, all living entities. They are trying to love Krishna, Krishna Prema. Lord Chaitanya describes Prema Pum, Arto Mahan, and Rupa Goswami described that you are distributing Krishna Prema. So Krishna Prema is so valuable, but Krishna is after Radharani. Just see how Radharani is great. Just try to understand the greatness of Radharani. Therefore, she is so great. And we have to offer our respect. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavadaite. How she is? Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite. Taruni means young girls. You'll see the pictures. They are all young girls. But of all the young girls, she is the most beautiful. She is enchanting to the young girls also. She is so beautiful. Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Damodararati Vardhanavesha. And she always dresses herself so nicely that Damodar Krishna becomes attracted by her beauty. Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipinayeshe. And she is the only lovable object of Krishna. And she is the queen of Vrindavan, this queen of Vrindavan. You'll find in Vrindavan, if you go to Vrindavan, everyone is worshiping Radharani. Rani means queen. They're always speaking Jai Radhe Radharani. All the devotees in Vrindavan, they are worshiper of Radharani. Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshe Vrishabhanudati Navasheshi Lekin. And she appeared as the daughter of King Vrishabhanu and her companion, Lalita Saki and Vishaka Saki and the devotees. So on behalf of the pure devotees of Krishna, Rupa Goswami is praying, Karunam Kurumai Karuna Bharite. Oh, my worshipable Radharani, you are full of mercy. So I am begging of your mercy because you are so merciful. Very easily you bestow your mercy. So I am begging your mercy. Karunam Kurumai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Varnite Varnita Charite. Now somebody may say, oh, you are so great, learned scholar, you are so great, saintly person, and you are begging mercy from an ordinary girl. How is that? Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, oh, this is not ordinary girl. Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite. This girl's description is possible to be made by great saintly persons like Sanaka Sanatana. She is not ordinary. So the lesson is that we should not treat Radharani as ordinary girl or Krishna as ordinary man. They are the supreme absolute truth. But in the absolute truth, there is the pleasure potency, and that is exhibited in the dealings of Radha and Krishna. And Radha's expansion, all the gopis, and Krishna is the supreme Lord. Thank you very much. Chant Hare Krishna. You can chant. So in that lecture, Prabhupada spontaneously started singing very emotionally that bhajan, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jaya. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions?
Would you say that today is a day to not to try to be inside here, but to let a little bit loose in a way, or it's a day to glorify Radharani directly.
Yeah, it's a special. Yeah, just like that bhajan we just sang. Today would be like a specially appropriate day to sing bhajan, authorized bhajans that particularly glorify Srimati Radharani. Today's a particularly wonderful day to go into those parts of Prabhupada's books that get deep into the descriptions of Radharani's pastimes and the pastimes of Radha Krishna. We just tasted a few drops. And that's what sometimes Prabhupada didn't give everything. It's like, okay, you obviously haven't read Prabhupada's books. Go into places, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Today can be a special day for that. Of course, on the context of the totality of Prabhupada's instructions and his cautions. Shri Radhastami ki.
Jai.
Srimati Radharani ki.
Jai.
Appearance day of Srimati Radharani ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.